Imagine playing a sport you love, giving it your all, risking injury and bringing in millions for your team, sponsors, and league, and only taking home just a small fraction of that amount. This is a reality for many athletes in the NFL, NBA, NHL, and MLB. While we are seeing big contracts, they are only getting a small amount of what they deserve. And this picture I have over here has a bunch of sports teams across the United States. Sports are a huge part of our culture, whether you're a diehard fan or just watch the Super Bowl. Professional athletes are at the center of this massive industry, but do they get their fair share of profits? We've researched this topic, comparing salaries, league revenues, and endorsement deals to show you the real story behind athlete compensation. Athletes in major professional sports are not fairly compensated. Despite them bringing in billions and billions of dollars, they only see a fraction of the wealth they help generate. We'll explain this unfair system in three ways. What is the average amount of money made in the four major sports leagues that I discussed earlier? And how much of that actually goes to the players? How much are team owners, sponsors, and others making compared to the athletes themselves? The pay gap between superstar athletes and low tier players. Are sponsorships and media deals truly rewarding all players fairly? Let's start with the big picture. How much money do these leagues make, and how much do the athletes actually take home?
I will be discussing the average amount of money each four professional sports leagues make and how much the athletes are actually taking home from that. The four major U.S. sports leagues consisting of the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL between 2022 and 2023 altogether earned $49.3 billion, according to an article on visualcapitalist.com, published by Niccolo Kant in 2024. The NFL currently has the highest revenue at $18.7 billion, while both NBA and MLB share a total revenue at $10.9 billion, and the NHL comes in last with a total of $6.8 billion in revenue. For each of the four leagues, they have, oh my God, I'm so sorry. For each of the four leagues, they each have primary sources that generate their revenue. NFL's central revenue, which is league media, merchandise, sponsorships, and shared ticket revenue, brings in 66% of their total revenue. The NBA's central revenue brings in 41% of their total revenue. The MLB's seating and suites bring in 31% of their total revenue. Finally, the NHL's seating and suites bring in 44% of their total revenue. These professional athletes are not taking home all the money their sports leagues are making off of them. According to MGO CPA, published in 2024, in most cases, professional athletes are only taking home roughly 50% of their contract value, as well as taxes and fees vary. Also considering this is before rent and lease expenses, living costs, and aiding friends and family. So half of the money these pro athletes are making, they won't ever see. That half of their money they will never see goes towards paying federal, state, and local taxes, as well as agent fees, etc. Along with that, these athletes are not getting paid all year round. Pay time varies, but most leagues are paying throughout the season, which means no paychecks during off season. This can be costly if they are not managing and spreading out their money correctly and cost efficiently.
With these sports leagues generating over billions of dollars, we see the athletes getting less themselves. It also makes you question how much other contributors of the sports leagues are making compared to the athletes. The article Sports Management Salary and Job Outlook, written by all business schools, discusses the average salary of many sports contributors. Some higher end contributors include marketing managers, which have a median about 1,157,000, while managers have a median of 102,000. Well, for the coaches, it's a plethora of different salaries due to geography having a large effect on salaries these coaches receive. According to the article Head Coach Major Sports Salaries written by salaries.com, there is an upward of over 100,000, but the median is 87,000. While there are many other behind-the-scenes jobs than just coaches and managers, which include lower power jobs. The article Sports Management Salary and Job Outlook referenced earlier also mentions the median salary of the lower end careers in the sports. Athletic trainers make about 57,000 and public relation networkers make about 66,000. As noted before, athletes take about 50% home or roughly 70,000 according to US Bureau of Labor Statistics. But considering there's an off season and many of these other contributors are still working, for example, marketing for sports does not end and neither does networking just for the off season. These athletes are not seeing as much as they should considering how much they contribute to the sports industry. As shown in the graph, derived from the article Athletes and Sports Competitors, we can see all expenses from Florida and state. Can you switch the slide? As shown in this graph derived from the article Athletes and Sports Contributors, we can see the expenses from Florida State and notice how little is going to the athlete themselves for student aid. Meanwhile, there is also two that goes to coaches, which include compensation and bonuses, and also their salary themselves, which are both larger than the athlete's portion.
Now, we know that these sports leagues are generating billions of dollars off of these athletes, but brands and sponsorships also have a major key role in generating even more money off of them. That leaves us with the question, are athletes truly compensated for the value they bring to brands? The impact athletes have on some brands is huge, but a significant portion of that massive revenue goes to the companies themselves. For example, LeBron James endorses the global brand Nike. Pat Benson, who covers the sneaker industry for Sports Illustrated Fan Nation, wrote that in 2003, James first signed the deal with Nike for life. Later, in another article submitted by ESPN, James's signature Nike line brought in $340 million in sales alone in 2014. This made him Nike's highest earner that year, and he was paid $30 million. Since he has a lifetime contract, he is paid the same $30 million every year, while he still receives millions, the true financial impact he has on the brands often outweighs his compensation considering he is one of the most well-known athletes in the world. The role of media deals is also a huge factor that comes into play. Media contracts, especially for major leagues like the NBA/WNBA, generate billions in revenue. And athletes are essential to this profit as it's their performance that fuels the viewership, ticket sales, and merch sales. However, most of the time, these athletes aren't compensated fairly for the amount of attention they bring to the league. For example, in the WNBA, professional women athletes only receive around 10% of the overall revenue they bring in. This is a photo showing how each of the big four US sports leagues make their money and where it comes from. The NFL solely in national TV/media deals only makes about $12.4 billion, the MLB $2.8 billion, the NBA $4.5 billion, and the NHL with $1.3 billion.
Professional athletes, men and women, should be compensated the same amount of money because they're all putting themselves at risk each game they play, on and off season. The most common injuries that athletes can get are ACL injuries, knee injuries, shoulder injuries. The ACL injury is the most common injury amongst athletes, which will make something as simple as running, jogging, walking limited and painful, something that we do during our daily lives. Shoulder injuries can make a person limited to what they're lifting or how they use their upper body, which is something that we all use in our daily lives as well. Those are just a few injuries I can name that can affect a person for the rest of their lives, which is more of the reason every professional athlete should get the same amount of money as sponsors, owner, endorsers, and other professional athletes in different leagues.
To summarize, professional athletes bring in billions of dollars, but they only get a small share of that money. On average, they take home about half of their contract after taxes, agent fees, and other expenses. Meanwhile, other people involved in the sport, like coaches and managers, often earn more than the athletes themselves. Even though athletes are the main reason for the sponsorships and media deals, they are not paid fairly for it. The page gap between star players and those lower on the roster show just how unfair the system is. In conclusion, athletes aren't being paid what they deserve. They are the ones making the league successful, but their pay doesn't reflect that. It's time for a change where athletes are paid more fairly for the value they bring to the sport.
And here are our references.